This story begins far away from courtroom lights, in a small, cluttered office on the west side of Brookdale, an office that claimed to offer therapy, guidance, and emotional healing. On the facade outside, a sun-faded sign read, Dr. Leonard M. Huxley, licensed therapist and life strategist. But Leonard Huxley was no doctor. He had no medical degree. He had no mental health certification. He wasn't even licensed. He was a man with a good memory, a cheap online certificate, and an uncanny ability to sound intelligent when he wanted to. For months, he'd been charging vulnerable clients premium fees for therapy sessions that were nothing more than motivational speeches mixed with recycled psychology quotes. Everything was going smoothly, until he met Amanda Blake, the client who would become the reason he ended up on Judge Judy's show, and the person whose persistence would expose everything. Amanda's first session. Amanda was a 29-year-old graphic designer dealing with overwhelming anxiety and work burnout. She had been encouraged by her friend to finally see a therapist, someone who could help her sort through her stress before it spiraled further. Unfortunately, the first listing she found happened to be Huxley's. When she sat down in his dimly lit office, her first impression wasn't comforting. The furniture was mismatched, the walls were decorated with framed quotes printed from the internet, and the bookshelf behind his desk was full of books he clearly hadn't read. But she was nervous, overwhelmed, and desperate to talk to someone. Huxley greeted her with a warm smile. Welcome. You're safe here. His voice was deep and gentle, practiced like a stage actor. Amanda took a breath. Maybe this could help. She began explaining her issues, the stress from her job, the constant deadlines, the panic she felt every morning before work, but as she spoke, something about his responses felt scripted. Yes, you're experiencing cognitive dissonance of the subconscious motivators, he said, waving his hand as if the phrase meant something. Amanda blinked. She wasn't a psychology expert, but she'd taken a few college classes, enough to know that his jargon didn't quite fit the context. Still, she continued. She wanted help. Red flags started appearing. The second appointment was worse. Instead of discussing progress or coping methods, Huxley spent most of the session lecturing her about 7 cosmic principles of self-transformation, which he claimed were derived from ancient therapeutic wisdom. They sounded suspiciously similar to a podcast she'd listened to the prior week. But the real alarm bells began when she mentioned her rising anxiety at work, instead of guiding her through breathing strategies or cognitive reframing. Huxley leaned forward and whispered, your anxiety is purely a choice. People who are spiritually weak manifest it. You must stop choosing it. Amanda felt her stomach drop. She knew enough to know that this was not therapy, it was blame disguised as enlightenment. Then came the invoices, $2.50 per session, $1.95 emotional reset fee, $60 premium therapeutic environment charge. Premium. His office smelled like mildew and old coffee. This time, Amanda walked out feeling worse than when she arrived. The breaking point. It wasn't until her 5th session that things finally snapped. Amanda had been crying, trying to talk about an argument she'd had with her boss. She was shaking, overwhelmed, and she thought, maybe, finally, Huxley would help her with something meaningful. Instead, he checked his phone twice, told her to stop letting weak energy dictate her life, and concluded the session 15 minutes early. That night, she vented to her friend Carla, who nearly spit out her drink when Amanda mentioned the name Dr. Huxley. Carla worked at the county records office. She knew, for a fact, there was no licensed therapist with that name in the entire state. Within minutes, Amanda was staring at her screen, realizing what had happened. She had trusted this man, she had opened up her trauma, she had allowed someone untrained and unlicensed to guide her mental health. She was humiliated, hurt, and furious. The confrontation. The next morning, she arrived at Huxley's office with a different posture, shoulders back, eyes sharp, jaw set. He opened the door with his usual polished warmth. Amanda, good to see you. Let's continue aligning your emotional. Cut the act, she snapped. I know you're not licensed. The smile fell off his face like it had been glued on. Excuse me? I checked. There's no record of you anywhere. You're a fraud. He stuttered for a moment, searching for an excuse, then he tried to flip it on her. Licensing databases are often inaccurate. You are misinformed. Oh, really? Amanda folded her arms. Then show me your license. He froze, his eyes flickered, his throat bobbed. My credentials are private. Private. A license, she nearly laughed in disbelief. I want all my money back. Every dollar. His mask cracked. Absolutely not. I provided you with quality therapeutic guidance. You agreed to the fees. Amanda felt anger rush up her spine. See you in small claims court. As she walked out, Huxley yelled that she would lose, that judges don't care about emotional misunderstandings. What he didn't know was that Amanda wasn't just suing for a refund. She was about to expose his entire operation. And the producers of Judge Judy, upon hearing the story, practically sprinted to get them on the show. The day of filming, walking into the studio, Amanda felt tense but ready. She wasn't there to argue. She was there to tell the truth. Huxley, on the other hand, arrived in a tailored suit far too expensive for his supposed small business struggles. He carried a briefcase he had probably bought just for the show. He walked with a confidence that wasn't confidence at all, it was bravado. Before the cameras rolled, he leaned toward Amanda. This show is entertainment. They won't understand complex therapeutic practice. I'll win. Amanda didn't respond, because Judge Judy understood one thing better than anyone: lies. The bailiff called them in. The audience quieted. The cameras turned. Judge Judy entered with her signature sharp gaze. Huxley gulped. Judge Judy starts her examination. Judge Judy flipped through the case file with deliberate slowness. Miss Blake, she said, not looking up, you're claiming this man misrepresented himself as a licensed therapist and caused emotional and financial damages. Yes, Your Honor. Judge Judy nodded and turned to Huxley. And you claim you are, in fact, a trained professional with valid credentials? Huxley straightened. This was his moment. Absolutely, Your Honor. I have extensive therapeutic training from multiple institutions. Judge Judy raised an eyebrow, the kind of eyebrow that made grown men rethink their entire life. Good. Then this should be simple. She leaned forward, hands folded. Where are your licenses? Huxley smiled as though he'd been expecting the question. My credentials are proprietary and not available for public display. Judge Judy blinked once. Proprietary. The courtroom was silent. She stared at him for a long, tense moment. Then she asked one single question, a question that would unravel his entire act. If you're licensed, what is your state license number? The audience leaned forward. Amanda held her breath. Huxley opened his mouth, and no sound came out, just a choking noise and a clumsy shuffle of papers. Judge Judy's voice cut through the silence like a blade. No license number? Then you're not licensed. The courtroom burst into whispers. Huxley panicked. Your Honor, it's complicated. No, it's not complicated. You either have a license or you don't. She slammed the file shut. And you don't. Huxley deflated in his chair. Judge Judy turned to Amanda. You're getting your money back. Every penny. But that wasn't the end, because Judge Judy wasn't done with him yet. Judge Judy's courtroom stayed silent for a moment after she declared that Huxley wasn't licensed. The cameras zoomed in on his face, pale, shaken, and still trying to maintain dignity he no longer had. The judge was clearly nowhere near finished with him. She leaned back in her chair, studying him the way a hawk studies a mouse that wandered into the wrong field. Amanda watched him shift in his seat, tapping the folder on his lap as if the papers inside might magically transform into real credentials. His confidence from earlier had evaporated, replaced by a defensive posture and a faint tremble in his jaw. He looked like a man who had been pretending for too long and finally ran out of script. Judge Judy broke the silence with a voice sharp enough to cut glass. Explain to me exactly what education qualifies you to treat people's mental health. Huxley straightened slightly, pulling one sheet of paper from his folder like it was a trophy. Your Honor, I completed an intensive certification program from the International Institute of Transformational Therapeutics. It's a highly respected, never heard of it, she interrupted. Where is it based? Huxley blinked. It's online. Of course it is, Judge Judy said, deadpan. And how many hours of actual training did this intensive program require? He swallowed. About 20. Judge Judy didn't even hide her laugh. 20 hours? People spend more time learning to braid hair. And you believe this qualifies you to counsel individuals with anxiety, trauma, and emotional distress? His lips twitched as he struggled to maintain composure. It's a holistic methodology. Not traditional, but still valid. Not here, it's not, she snapped. In this country, if you call yourself a therapist, you must be licensed. Period. She pointed a finger at him. You told this woman you were a doctor. I never said the word doctor, he insisted quickly. Amanda finally spoke up. You introduced yourself as Dr. Huxley on the first day. You said it 3 times. Huxley's head whipped toward her, eyes widening. I said I was a therapeutic practitioner. Judge Judy slammed her hand on her desk. Practitioner of what? Fraud? The audience erupted with laughter. Even the bailiff cracked a smile. You took this woman's money, Judge Judy continued, and instead of providing her with legitimate care, you fed her nonsense about cosmic principles and weak spiritual energy. Do you have any idea how harmful that is to someone seeking real help? Huxley stiffened. My approach empowers clients to understand their inner. No, she cut in. Your approach empowers you to steal their money. Amanda felt a weight lift off her shoulders as Judge Judy said the words she herself had been afraid to admit. For months, she'd wondered if she was overreacting or imagining how wrong the sessions felt. But now, under courtroom lights and blunt truth, everything became crystal clear. Judge Judy leaned back. Miss Blake, tell me how you ended up in this man's office. Amanda explained everything, how she found his listing, how his office felt off but she blamed it on nerves, how his advice made her anxiety worse instead of better, how he blamed her for her own symptoms, and how his dismissal during the last session had finally pushed her to investigate. As she spoke, Huxley shook his head, muttering under his breath. Judge Judy didn't miss it. You can shake your head all you want, she said sternly, but this is exactly the sort of behavior that gets people hurt. You don't just play therapist. You don't pretend to help people while taking their money. Huxley attempted to regain control. Your Honor, she is exaggerating. My methods are unconventional but not harmful. She simply didn't resonate with my techniques. Judge Judy's eyebrows shot up. Resonate? This isn't a tuning fork. This is mental health treatment. And you are not qualified to give it. The audience murmured in agreement. Huxley's jaw clenched. Many clients appreciate my work. I've helped dozens of people. Judge Judy's expression shifted into something sharper, colder. I'd be careful admitting that on national television, considering you're practicing without a license. He froze again, realizing too late what he had revealed. Judge Judy looked at her clerk. Make a note of that statement. Huxley's panic was now visible, tiny beads of sweat forming on his forehead, his hands gripping the cheap pen he'd brought like it could anchor him. Amanda watched him sink into the chair, his earlier arrogance fully replaced with fear. She never wanted revenge, but she had wanted accountability. For the first time since she found out the truth about him, she felt like justice was happening right before her eyes. Judge Judy turned back to Amanda. How much money did you pay him? Amanda listed the sessions, the bogus fees, the absurd therapeutic environment charge, and the emotional reset fee, which made Judge Judy's mouth fall open. Emotional reset, the judge repeated. What in the world is that supposed to be? Huxley cleared his throat. It's a specialized technique I developed. No, it's not, Judge Judy said flatly. It's something you made up to increase your invoice. He sputtered. It involves guided mental realignment. Stop talking, she instructed. You're digging yourself so deep I might have to throw you a rope. The audience burst into laughter again. Huxley shut his mouth, pressing his lips into a thin line. Judge Judy gathered the papers in front of her and tapped them once against the desk. I'm awarding the plaintiff the full refund. But I still have questions. She stared at Huxley with the precision of someone who could slice a statue in half using only her eyes. You stated earlier that you've helped dozens of people. How many paying clients do you currently have? Huxley hesitated. Around 30. The judge folded her arms. All of them paying for therapy you have no legal right to provide? Huxley opened his mouth, then closed it again. That's what I thought, she said. You are running a business that is not just unethical, it is illegal. Huxley tried one more time to salvage some dignity. Your Honor, people come to me because traditional therapy doesn't work for them. They want alternatives. Then call yourself a life coach or a motivational speaker, she replied, her tone icy. But you don't call yourself a therapist unless you are one. The silence that followed felt heavy, final, and irreversible. Amanda watched him stare down at his hands, the reality of his situation sinking in. This wasn't some disgruntled customer he could charm or confuse. This was Judge Judy, and she could spot truth from fiction faster than he could invent another lie. Then she asked him another question. It wasn't as explosive as the license question, but it was just as devastating. Do you have malpractice insurance? His head jerked up. What? Why would I? Because licensed therapists carry it, she said sharply. So if something goes wrong, the patient isn't left without protection. Do you have it? That's not required for my field. You don't have a field, she barked. The audience gasped. Amanda nearly jumped from her seat. The bailiff coughed to hide a grin. The judge wasn't just calling him out anymore. She was dismantling every excuse he'd ever used, and for the first time, Huxley seemed to understand that he wasn't walking out of this courtroom with his reputation intact. He was walking out exposed, cracked open, unmasked, and Amanda could tell that Judge Judy wasn't even close to done. Judge Judy let the silence linger after dismantling his excuses. Huxley sat frozen, gripping his pen like it might somehow defend him. His voice was gone. Whatever performance he had rehearsed vanished the moment she exposed the truth he'd been hiding for years. Amanda watched him try to maintain composure, but the tension in his jaw and the nervous tapping of his foot gave him away. Judge Judy finally spoke again, her voice low but unyielding. Tell me something, Mr. Huxley. When you first started this operation, did you genuinely believe you were helping people? Or did you know from the beginning that you were unqualified? He licked his lips, eyes darting toward the cameras, then to Amanda, then back to the judge. I help people find clarity. That's what matters, he said weakly. That isn't an answer, she replied. Try again. He shifted. I believe my clients benefit from my guidance. That isn't what I asked you either, Judge Judy said sharply. I asked whether you knew you were pretending to be something you are not. He stayed quiet for several seconds, as though choosing between lying and telling the truth had suddenly become too complicated. Finally, he muttered, I thought my methods were enough. Judge Judy's tone hardened. Enough for what? Enough to diagnose anxiety? Enough to treat trauma? Enough to take money from vulnerable clients who trust you? Her eyes narrowed. Or enough to fool people who don't know any better? Huxley's face flushed. I didn't fool anyone. They came voluntarily. People go to surgeons voluntarily too, she snapped. That doesn't mean the surgeon can operate without a license. She leaned forward. And if you think mental health is less important than physical health, you're dangerously uninformed. For the first time since entering the courtroom, Huxley looked genuinely shaken, not just embarrassed, but exposed at a level he hadn't anticipated. Amanda felt a strange mix of satisfaction and pity. Not pity for him as a person, but pity for the ridiculousness of what he believed he could get away with. The judge took a breath and opened a manila folder. I asked my team to pull your business listing this morning. It says you are a licensed professional counselor. She held up a printout. This is a lie. Huxley's shoulders hunched. It's outdated information. It's false information, she corrected. And you knowingly put it there. That's misrepresentation. That's deception. And it doesn't matter whether you intended harm, the harm is that you pretended to be something you are not. Huxley stared at the desk, his facade fully crumbling. Judge Judy turned to Amanda. Miss Blake, do you recall any particular moment when you realized this man had no idea what he was doing? Amanda nodded. Yes. There was a session where I was crying about something that triggered a panic attack. Instead of helping me calm down, he told me anxiety was a choice and that I was spiritually weak for letting it control me. Judge Judy's eyes widened, and she pivoted sharply toward Huxley. You said that? It was part of he started. She raised her hand. If you say holistic approach one more time, I'm going to have the bailiff escort you to a dictionary. The audience burst into laughter. Amanda continued. There was another time he cut my session short because he needed to reset the room's energy. And he still charged me the full fee. Judge Judy blinked twice, slowly. Reset the room's energy. Huxley jumped in defensively. That is part of my therapeutic process. The environment must be aligned. Stop, she said firmly. You're embarrassing yourself. He closed his mouth. Amanda wasn't done. He had these strange charts about cosmic vibrations and emotional spectrum waves. He kept referring to them like they were medical documents. Judge Judy raised an eyebrow. Medical documents? Really? They're models based on, Huxley began. The judge cut him off again. Based on what? A sci-fi novel? A YouTube video? She shook her head. You're not a therapist. You're an actor who forgot to audition for the right role. The audience gasped and murmured. Huxley's face tightened with anger now, not panic. Your Honor, I am not an actor. I provide people with tools to improve their lives. Tools? Judge Judy scoffed. You charged her how much for these tools? Amanda read from her notes. I paid him over $1,400 in total. The judge looked stunned. $1,400. For what? Inspirational speeches and imaginary energy resets? Huxley's lips trembled. It wasn't imaginary. Sir, I could walk into that courtroom hallway, swing my arms around, say I'm cleansing the aura of the waiting room, and it would be just as imaginary. The room erupted in laughter once again. Huxley didn't laugh. Amanda managed a small, proud smile. For the first time, she felt her experience was being validated by someone with authority, someone who wasn't afraid to call Huxley exactly what he was. Judge Judy's voice softened slightly as she turned to Amanda. How did this affect you emotionally? Amanda took a breath. Honestly, it made me feel worse. I felt stupid for trusting him. I felt ashamed. And I started doubting whether I even deserved real help. Hearing those words out loud made her chest tighten. She hadn't fully realized how much the situation had impacted her until that moment. Judge Judy nodded slowly. And that is the real harm. People like him take advantage of those seeking help. They pretend they know what they're doing, but all they're doing is damaging people who already feel vulnerable. Huxley tried one last time to defend himself. I didn't damage anyone. I helped her open up emotionally. Open up? Judge Judy repeated. She wasn't a jar of pickles. She needed support, not pseudo-psychology. He flinched as the audience laughed again. Judge Judy's tone shifted to something final. You are going to refund her money. You are not going to call yourself a therapist anymore. And if you continue offering these sessions, you better make it abundantly clear that you are not licensed or medically trained. Huxley exhaled in defeat. His shoulders dropped. His posture wilted. Then Judge Judy added, and before this case concludes, I have one more question for you. He lifted his head slightly, bracing himself. Do you understand the consequences, she said, of pretending to be a therapist on national television? Huxley blinked, confused. What consequences? Oh, I don't know, she replied casually. Maybe the part where the state licensing board might see this episode. Maybe the Attorney General's office. Maybe the authorities who investigate unlicensed practicing. Huxley's face went sheet white. The audience gasped. Amanda felt every ounce of tension leave her body, and Judge Judy simply waited, watching his panic grow in real time. Huxley sat frozen, as if the chair beneath him had suddenly turned to ice. The mention of authorities, licensing boards, and investigations drained whatever color remained in his face. For the first time since he walked into the courtroom with his polished suit and rehearsed confidence, he understood that this wasn't a performance he could charm his way through. This was real. And this time, the consequences would be real too. Judge Judy watched him silently, letting the weight of her words sink in. The audience sat perfectly still, waiting for his response, waiting for the final crack in the mask he'd worn for years. Amanda could see him battling with denial, frustration, fear, and the urge to defend himself, yet none of his excuses could survive the scrutiny of that courtroom. Finally, he stammered, I wasn't trying to break any laws. I just wanted to help people. Judge Judy's expression softened only slightly. Intent does not erase impact. If a person drives without a license, they may not intend to hurt anyone, but they still put people in danger. The same goes for mental health. She gestured toward Amanda. People come to therapy when they are at their lowest. Misguiding them doesn't just inconvenience them, it can cause long-term damage. Huxley lowered his gaze, staring at his hands. The bravado had vanished, replaced by something near remorse, or maybe just fear of what would happen next. Stand up, Judge Judy instructed. He rose slowly, as though gravity had doubled. You are going to refund Miss Blake every penny she gave you. The full $1,400. She pointed at him firmly. And you will stop representing yourself as anything remotely resembling a licensed professional. If you want to offer self-help or life coaching services, fine, be honest about it. Be transparent. Don't hide behind titles you haven't earned. He nodded, defeated. Yes, Your Honor. Amanda watched the transformation in him, subtle but undeniable. He wasn't the confident imposter from earlier. He wasn't the smooth-talking doctor with mystical charts and cosmic vocabulary. He was simply a man caught in the truth, facing the consequences of his choices. Judge Judy turned her attention to Amanda. Miss Blake, consider this judgment paid in full. And let this experience remind you that your mental health deserves real, qualified support, nothing less. Amanda nodded, tears stinging her eyes, not from sadness, but from relief. Relief that the nightmare of self-doubt and confusion had finally been validated, corrected, and closed. Relief that she would finally be free to seek real help. She exhaled, feeling the weight lift from her chest for the first time in months. The judge wasn't done yet. She glanced back at Huxley. One last thing before we wrap up. She leaned forward. If you ever come across another vulnerable person needing help, send them to someone qualified. Not to your office, not to your cosmic charts, and not to your fictional credentials. Huxley swallowed hard. Understood. Good, she said. Then her tone shifted to something final, unmistakable. Judgment for the plaintiff. Her gavel hit the desk with a sharp crack that echoed through the courtroom. It was the sound of closure, justice, and the end of the longest con Huxley had ever run. Bailiff Bird motioned for them to exit, and the cameras cut for commercial. Amanda stood, gathering her things, and felt a sudden wave of appreciation for the judge who had cut right through the nonsense, for the courage she found to pursue the case, and for the chance to finally put the entire ordeal behind her. As she started toward the hallway, Huxley approached her timidly. His voice was low and uneven. I didn't mean to hurt you. Amanda didn't respond at first. She wasn't sure what to say. She wasn't sure he even deserved a reply. For a long moment they stood there, the tension between them heavy with everything that had happened. Finally, she answered, her voice steady. If you really want to help people, do it honestly. Without pretending to be something you're not. He nodded, his eyes dropping. Then he walked away, shoulders slumped, looking smaller than she had ever seen him. Amanda stepped into the hallway with the cameras rolling. The producers gathered her for the post-case interview, asking how she felt, what she learned, what she wished others knew. She spoke honestly. I learned that when something feels off, it probably is. I learned to trust my instincts. And I learned that help should never make you feel worse. Real therapists don't shame you. They don't blame you. They don't hide behind fake titles. It felt good saying the words. It felt empowering. And when she left the studio, she walked out with more than just the promise of her funded money. She walked out with the self-respect she'd nearly lost and the clarity she'd been searching for all along. Weeks passed, and life moved forward. Amanda found a licensed therapist through a verified directory. Her new sessions felt different, gentle, professional, useful. And slowly, she rebuilt confidence in herself and in the process she had once feared. As for Huxley, the episode aired nationwide, and it did not disappear quietly. Calls poured into his office demanding refunds. The county issued warnings. His online listings were removed. Whatever business he once had crumbled quickly. Some said he moved states. Others said he rebranded as a meditation coach. But whatever he chose next, one thing was certain, he no longer claimed to be a doctor. Amanda would sometimes think about him, not with anger, but with a strange kind of closure. He wasn't some villain who ruined her life. He was simply a man who shouldn't have been playing a role he wasn't trained for. And she wasn't a victim anymore, she was someone who stood up for herself, who spoke out, who demanded better. Months later, when someone mentioned the episode and laughed about the moment Judge Judy asked the one question that unraveled his entire lie, Amanda smiled. It had been the simplest question of all. The kind only someone with absolute authority could ask with such devastating precision. What is your license number? Even now, the memory of his stunned silence made Amanda's chest feel lighter. In the end, justice didn't come from punishment, it came from truth. And the truth, once spoken, had been enough to set everything right. The case closed. The deception exposed. The healing began, and the one question heard around the courtroom became the moment a fake therapist's career ended, and a real journey for Amanda finally began.